friends, welcome to my first YouTube video. We are going to create cards today with the Spellbinders monthly clubs for March 2023. So first up is the small die of the month. This month it's called the Floral Butterfly Card Front. I'm in love with this butterfly. It's going to be so versatile. So you can see we have the butterfly, we have the Just Because word dies, and then we have floral elements that can decorate the butterfly. In addition, we have this beautiful panel cover, I'm going to call it. It's like a cover die. It covers half the card front, but you cut it twice and it creates a complete card front. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm just going to cut it once out of the bottom of the panel. And while you watch me do that, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. My name is Allison. You might know me on Instagram as Allie Frazier. I've been making cards since 2018, and it's a bit of an addiction. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. All right, so now you see me creating a second panel, and the reason I'm creating that second panel is I'm going to cut the bottom off that has that little decorative edge. My thought was to put that at the top of my card to kind of try to tie it all together. You'll see a little bit later on that I wasn't quite happy with that, but that's just part of the process. I change my mind as I go along. I'm sure that you do that too, and that's okay. So here you see me just measuring the top of that white piece so that I can cut off the corresponding amount and fit everything on my A2 card front. By the way, that is a top folding violet card front that you see there. All right, so as we watch me glue these pieces down to my card base, I just wanted to talk a little bit about YouTube. I've been wanting to make a YouTube video for, oh gosh, almost 2 years now. And I'm finally doing it. And it's been a lot of work, but it's been fun. And even in this segment especially, I can see that I have a lot of autofocus issues going on with my phone. I'm just using my iPhone to film right now. So I'm assuming I just probably need to turn that autofocus feature off. So I apologize for that aspect of this video. Any helpful hints that any of you can give me, I would really appreciate it. So just leave me a comment. And I guess one last thing, I will be leaving a list of supplies down in the description for the video. So definitely take a look for those. And here we are back to the card. All right, so here comes the butterfly pieces. I already cut them out of some turquoise and purple paper. Now you can see on both parts of the butterfly there's these score lines that you can fold, and it gives the butterfly dimension. If these score lines hadn't been there, I would have created them myself. I love butterflies for that reason, because you can just create the most beautiful dimension with them. So here I am now gluing the pieces to the butterfly. And you can do whatever you want with the butterfly. You don't have to glue these pieces. I'm sure that as time goes by, I'm going to be using this butterfly a lot, and I probably won't use these pieces every time. But I mean, I know a lot of us have a lot of butterflies in our collection, but to me, there's just never enough. They're just great for any occasion. This card today, as I was making it, sometimes I don't really know what occasion I'm making a card for. Whatever just kind of suits my mood. Sometimes it's really what sentiment looks good on a card, and that kind of creates the occasion. You'll see at the end, this turns out being a congrats card, which I think this would be a really beautiful card for a wedding or an anniversary, or who knows? Who knows what you want to congratulate a friend on. All right, so I'm gluing all the pieces. And You can see I am using one of my favorite tools, my tweezers. My second favorite tool is off to the side there, my Tim Holtz craft pick. I don't think I ever make a card without these two tools. So if you don't have either of these, I highly suggest it. I think the craft pick is really one of the most underestimated tools in our craft room. I use it all the time. And really, with die cut pieces, I find that I use it a lot to just get the little hairs off, the little, when you die cut a piece and there's little stray hairs. I use my craft pick all the time to take those off. All right, so I'm kind of setting things up on the card, and there are the dies for the body and the little centers of the flowers. Right now I'm testing out whether I want to use those little centers or if I'm going to use these gemstones. So now I'm gluing just the very center of the butterfly to the panel so that I can have that dimension. And there's that craft pick again. And just, pressing down on that center to make sure that it is staying in place. And then we are going to hold it down. All right, here comes the sentiment. And I did not realize that it seems that Spellbinders may have discontinued this sentiment. These are some of my very favorite sentiment dies. I have linked a reseller down below that still sells this. There might be other resellers as well, but I just love the font. I think that it's really beautiful. So here you can see me taking my white die. I'm going to glue it to the purple one and create a shadow effect. That's one of my favorite things to do with sentiment dies. If you don't have a shadow layer for a sentiment die, just create your own drop shadow. I just glue them together and I slightly offset it. And it just creates a really great effect. So now I'm just kind of pushing it together. I can tell that my C, I didn't really have it on the right side to create the drop shadow, so now it's ready to glue to my card front, and I just really think it's beautiful. I love the white on white because I think it's really subtle and beautiful, but just that little hint of lavender peeking out from underneath is great. So now, as I think I'm done, it turns out I wasn't, because as I looked at the card, maybe a few hours later, I decided it just was too plain at the top. I wasn't really happy with it. So you'll see with the final products, I ended up just, I added a very thin border of lavender up near that edge. And then I even ended up adding some twine. So here you see me adding the gemstones. I did decide to go to the gemstones instead of the little flower centers that there is a die for. And I'm creating the body out of white glitter cardstock. I originally was just going to do white. I ended up cutting another layer out of white glitter cardstock, and that's what I'm about to glue on right now. And I really just love how this butterfly turned out. I love the gems for the center of the flowers. And I just think it turned out really pretty. And in a second, you're going to see the final product with the twine at the top, like I had mentioned before. And I'm really happy with it. All right, so next we are going to make a card with the 3D embossing folder of the month, which is called Spring Burst. And I apologize, I started this card off camera. I took a panel of an alcohol ink background that I had made with Yupo paper. So right now I'm kind of showing you what I did to arrive at this background. I just cut a rectangle out of my Yupo background, and then I took this square die and I cut that hole in the center. Then I put it into the embossing folder and I lined it up with the pattern of the embossing folder, which is why I used that square to begin with. And then I ran it through the embossing folder. So then when it came out of the embossing folder, I took my sanding block and I ran it over the raised edges. And that's why you see the white showing through. This is one of my favorite techniques to do with 3D embossing folders, especially on Yupo paper. I don't know what it is about the alcohol ink backgrounds. They just really do well with this technique. All right, so now what you are going to see me do is add foam tape to the back of this Yupo paper. And I'm not going to lie, I added a lot of foam tape. I was not shy. Yupo paper is different than regular paper. You can't tear it with your hands, but it's kind of flexible. So I just put a lot of foam tape on so there wouldn't be any parts that weren't supported. So here you see me taking off all the release paper, and I'm going to pop it up onto my white A2 card base. And again, doing this with a camera above your head, it's a little challenging, but for my first time, I think I did okay. And speaking of overhead cameras, yeah, it's my very first filming. I did kind of a test a week ago, and almost the entire video was the top of my head. So this time I put the camera a little bit lower, and now I think I put it too low. But again, things to learn for next time. All right, so here's the squares that I used to cut out the hole in the middle, and now I'm using that square and the size bigger to cut a frame out of white cardstock. And you can see my white cardstock has ink spots all over it. It's just a scrap piece of cardstock, but the part where the frame is going to be cut is clean. I do not throw much away in my craft room, especially when it comes to paper. If I do continue doing YouTube videos, I may show you my little bin of scraps, and you'd be amazed at the teeny tiny pieces of colored cardstock that I keep. Especially, I work a lot with Spellbinders products, and there are teeny tiny flowers, so keep your scraps. All right, so here's the white frame. I think it really finishes this off really nice. And originally I couldn't decide if I wanted the center of that to be white or if I wanted to insert the original cutout from the Yupo panel. I ended up using the Yupo panel. And I think it's really neat look because it's a continuous design, but having the center be unembossed and the surrounding part be embossed, I think looks kind of cool. So here I am gluing it into the center, and I think it looks pretty cool. Lavender and turquoise, can we just talk about that? So pretty. I don't work with purple a lot. I recently made a card with purple on it, and I ended up really loving it. I think I need to use it more. And turquoise is, and always has been, my very favorite color. There's a lot of it in my house. There's a lot of it in my wardrobe. I will never tire of it. All right, so here you see me placing the frame, and now I am going to glue it with my trusty tweezers. And again, you can see on the back of that frame, I used a piece of scrap cardstock. I do that a lot. The top part of my die cuts is usually a clean piece of paper, and then when I build up layers, I use scrap pieces. And honestly, a lot of times those scrap pieces are from cards that I have taken apart. Maybe there's cards that I made a year or two ago, and I see them now, and I disassemble them and I reuse them. And that's okay. Reuse or recycle, right? Okay, I think at this point I was looking for my little block that I usually use to hold things down while the glue is drying, but as with most things in my craft room, I could not locate it at the moment. Does that happen to you? Sometimes I feel like I spend most of my time looking for things in my craft room rather than crafting. And here I was just showing you that I cut the flowers out of a leftover part of that Yupo panel so that they matched the colors of the background. I did use that die to create the centers for the flowers this time. And here we go. We're going to start assembling this butterfly. And again, I assembled the butterfly just as I did before, using the flowers and the vines. This time I am using the word die that came with the small die of the month, that just because. And I believe that I have 2 layers of cardstock glued together for that. So right now I'm just kind of lining everything up and seeing how I want to lay things out. And then you'll see me start gluing it. So it is almost spring. I don't know about where you live, but here in Colorado, which is where I live, this time of year can be a little wacky. It can be 60 degrees one day, and then we'll have a snowstorm the next day. So we get teased a lot this time of year, but I think this year, more than ever, I am just ready for spring. So things like butterflies right now, they make me happy. All right, so we're almost done assembling this card. We're just gonna glue these words down. And these are really small, delicate dies, which is why I make more than one layer. And you'll see me glue it, and then off camera I kind of dab it off on another piece of paper just so there's not too much glue that oozes out. And then you'll see me use my T-ruler to make sure I'm getting it on straight. And I'm probably going to be coming in with my craft pick again at some point, just to get any excess glue. I know glue dries clear, but I get really finicky about it. I almost always come in with my craft pick immediately and just kind of dab away any glue that oozes out of the sides of anything. And I guess I didn't come in with my craft pick. Maybe because I had dabbed the extra glue off on a piece of paper and I didn't need to do that. So again, this card is pretty much done and I really like it. I usually hoard my alcohol ink backgrounds, but I'm glad I used this one for this card. I think it was worth it. Okay, we're going to make one last card, again using the embossing folder, and this is another one of my favorite techniques. I just take an ink pad, this time I use Distress Oxide, and I swipe it on the inside of the embossing folder. And for this particular one, I swiped it on the raised edges so that when I put my paper in, the ink is going to be pressed into the paper. You saw me with a spray bottle, I was spraying my white card panel. When you're using 3D embossing folders, it's good to spray it first so you don't get any cracks. And before I lay it into the embossing folder and press down, I am just kind of lining it up on the uninked side of the embossing folder, just to make sure that the pattern is nice and straight, or as straight as I can get it. And as soon as I am happy with that, I will carefully close the embossing folder and run it through my die machine. I did decide not to film die cutting because I think there's nothing really exciting about it. If I were to do things like partial die cutting, I would certainly pull in my machine and show you how I do that. But here you see the results. So this is the debossed side of the card. And the ink is pressed in there, and I think it looks really cool. So here I am just spraying the embossing folder, and I'm going to wipe it down. And it's just really easy to clean. So if you're ever worried about doing these kind of techniques, don't worry. It's plastic. It comes right off. And, you know, it's all about playing. Okay, so now we are kind of auditioning pieces for this card. I popped the panel up on a white card base, and I'm using one of my new favorite word dies. These are sentiments from some sets designed by Yana, and I just love them. I've been using them a lot lately. And I decorated my butterfly. I didn't use the flowers as intended. I did something a little different. And now I am hot foiling a little sentiment. And okay, so I talked about my little scraps before. Now you're going to see my mess of a bin of hot foil scraps. And again, I keep the tiniest pieces because you'll see, like, look at this little piece. That's perfect for what I need. I just needed one little piece of white foil for this teeny tiny sentiment, and I had what I needed. So again, I'm not going to show you the hot foiling. I just put this onto my Glimmer hot foil plate and ran it through. And this is the new white opaque hot foil, and I love it. It just comes out perfectly every time, and it's better than heat embossing, if you ask me. And now I'm just taking a sentiment strip from a totally unrelated set, and I'm going to cut this out. This is from actually a hot foil set, and there was one little sentiment die that cuts out all the sentiments in that set, and I use it a lot for other sentiments. All right, so I originally thought that I was going to put white enamel dots on my butterfly, which is what you see right there. And I'm, again, arranging things, and I'm looking at it, and ultimately I decided that the butterfly did not look so good with that sentiment. So I went back to the original design of the butterfly, and I think it turned out really cute. All right, that is it for my first YouTube video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.